So you've got some leech damage. Let's take a look at it.
Just a little bit.
And we have a batten pocket that looks like it's come off. I see what you're talking about. Now, you were telling me earlier that you thought your leech tape needed to be replaced on the entire sail. And when we start to see it coming apart in a variety of spots, I would agree with you. So
that's what, sun damage?
Yeah, that would be sun damage. Some of it might be some abrasion damage if you're anywhere close to the backstay, but certainly down in this area where you can take that, here you had it over here, where you can take the leech tape and you can just sort of easily rip the tape and it just pulls apart very simply.
Yeah.
That's clearly sun damage. So that is a pretty good indication that the entire leech tape on the sail needs to be replaced.
Yeah, the question always is with a sail, like when it's a few years old like this one is it worth repairing?
Yeah.
And that's a judgment call, obviously, but I mean, I guess to the extent of the damage and how much you want to spend, is this sail actually worth repairing from what you can see?
You know, if I was going to take it to a sail maker and spend several $100s on it, I would probably say that you might want to be thinking about replacing the sail at this point.
Right.
But if you wanted to repair it yourself and you were interested in just getting another 2 or 3 years out of it, I think it's probably worth going ahead and throwing it under a sewing machine and doing a patch job.
Sounds reasonable to me.
But there's a good way to tell. When you get to an area where that leech tape has been ripped off entirely, which looks like you've got some form of a patch on this already just to hold the leech line in place. There we go. So we don't want to look at that, but we want to look at the area that is just inside the old leech tape. And if we try and rip that material and it still feels pretty darn strong, the integrity of the fabric there is all right. So I think we would be okay to replace it.
Okay.
If that would rip easily, then you're going to put a patch job on it, you're going to repair it, and what's going to happen is it's just going to rip inside the new leech tape. So
and create a problem all over again.
Then you're back to square one and you've wasted a lot of time.
That's reasonable.
But looking at this, I would say the easiest way to repair this sail would be first to take a look at your batten pocket problem. And
you were explaining to me earlier about, and I didn't know this, about how the batten pocket is made and how it works and what's important about it. I wouldn't mind hearing that again.
Yeah, this is a traditional batten pocket. And what that means is that you'll have a fiberglass batten in here or some type of a plastic batten, and you've got a wedge end. And you'll notice that the end is open in the wedge area. And the way this is intended to work is that you pass the batten in through the opening,
right,
push it into the end of the pocket, and if you could feel right there, there's a lot of thickness.
Right.
That thickness is actually a piece of elastic that's sewn.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm looking at there.
Yeah, that's the basting tape that's holding the pocket together.
Got it.
But the elastic will terminate somewhere short of the end of the pocket.
Yeah, I can feel that.
And when you pass the batten in there and push the batten back all the way in, you then tuck it down in, and when you tuck it in and it presses against the sewn area here, which you can see this had some heavy sewn twine on it at one point that looks like it needs a little bit of attention too. That keeps the batten from flying out on you. So, and then when you want to remove the batten, what you would do is you would push against the sail to force the batten into the back here, and then pop it up into the wedge, and that's when the batten comes out.
I've had sails on other boats that weren't built this way. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, a full batten arrangement would be different, of course.
Yeah.
But for standard battens, this is very traditional.
So our procedure to repair the sail now would be what?
Well, the first thing we're going to want to do is get this batten pocket back on up to a certain point. But I'm also noticing that when this pocket came off, we have a rip here in the sail right at the inboard end of the batten. So the very first thing we need to do is we need to solve the integrity of the sail in that area. Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put just a small Dacron patch in this area, and we're going to sew that in place. Since this is a slit instead of a hole like what a mouse might do, we won't actually cut this. We'll also just sew around the slit as well, and that's just a standard window type repair on sailcloth.
How difficult is this for a neophyte like myself to do?
None of it's difficult. The easiest thing, the nicest thing about it is that everything can be stuck in place with a double stick basting tape prior to sewing,
Right.
and that's what really makes things pretty easy.
I remember that when I was a kid using my mom's machine years and years ago, trying to sew something and hold it all together,
Yep.
and I thought, I just don't have enough hands for this.
Yep, yep. Well, the typical homemaker would use pins to do it, but fortunately we have better tools today. Double stick tape. You don't stick your fingers either.
I think I was 8.
Yep, understood. So all right, so let's go back to this. So once you repair the hole,
Right?
then we're going to just stick the batten pocket back on, and we're going to sew it up to probably about this point.
Right.
Okay, we're going to leave this end loose for now.
Okay.
And and we can always come back and restitch it down after we're done with the leech. Our big problem with the leech here is that we have a section. We have a section here where the original sailcloth ran all the way up to a point where my finger is.
Right there.
Yep.
Right.
And so we're missing a long, narrow wedge of fabric that would complete the leech edge of the sail.
The one that tore off inside the pocket.
That's correct. So we can't obviously just cap the sail here with the new leech tape because we're going to have a really weird looking jagged edge at the back. So what we've got to do is basically create a supplemental panel that runs up the back edge that replaces that void. Sew that in place. Then we're going to come back, and what we're going to want to do is where all of this bad leech tape is, we're going to have to rip these stitches. That's the time-consuming part. And then you're going to have to pull all of this old tape away.
You wouldn't just resew that then?
No, you can't really resew the end. Well, you could, I guess, but remember,
The
this
fabric's bad,
material's gone. So if we resew the end, we just have
Right.
the same problem again.
Right.
So, and don't worry too much about the leech line. This leech line is held at the very top or the head of the sail. So if you were to open up, well, you can see it because the leech line's
Yeah.
an orange color.
Yeah, there it
so
is.
what they've done, it terminates up here at the top,
Right.
and it's basically usually just looped over, and this will actually be machine sewn right to the back edge of the sail.
So it's not going anywhere?
It's not going to go anywhere. So all you're going to have to do is pull this leech line out, coil it up, get rid of the old leech tape, but you will have to, at all other batten pockets, you're going to have to remove the stitching to lift the batten pocket off the sail. And let me show you the different pocket.
Okay.
Here we go. So here's a good example. So you can see the pocket comes up, and the lower layer will be sewn under,
Right.
but we've got to get this top layer unstitched enough that we can pull it up and out of the way of the leech so that we can get the new leech tape down and then apply all of this back on top again.
Good job.
So, well, you're basically just looking at the way it's already done, taking it apart, reversing the process to put it back together again.
It
Okay?
doesn't sound like rocket science.
It really isn't. The hardest part about working with a sail this size for a boat, and this, what boat is this again?
It's a Dufour 34.
Okay, so a boat above 30 foot in length is, at some point you're going to have to lay this whole sail out. Makes it a lot easier to work with things so that you can pull all the tapes off, and then it'll be a lot easier to see what's going on. Then you've got to go to your local sail maker or to a company like mine, and you've got to buy a slit Dacron tape, is what they call this.
Right.
So if this is roughly 1.5 inch width, you're going to buy what we would call a 3-inch slit Dacron tape.
Right.
And you can buy it pre-folded, so it's already creased at the back edge.
Right.
Or you can buy a flat tape, fold it in half, and crease it yourself. And then we basically start back at the top of the sail, above wherever we terminate this. Don't take the headboard off.
No.
You're just going to overlap the new leech tape somewhere up here at the top.
So in other words, I would say, I would start it maybe right here and just work down?
Yeah, I
And
think
leave
I
it
might
with it?
even come down in here. You don't want to get so close to a hard object like this that it's difficult to get a sewing machine in there.
Right.
So just tuck a hem in the leech tape somewhere up here at the top.
Right.
And then you're not sewing over this so much. You just start your sewing along the inside edge of the tape.
So
and
this here,
carry
we
it
would
down.
cut it here and then we'd hem that over?
Right. Right.
I
We're going to
gotcha.
hem the top layer under. that
Right.
direction.
Gotcha.
So, and then we're going to bring that down, and you're just going to, your job at that point is to keep the crease against the back edge of the sail,
Right.
and at the same time keep that leech line inside that.
And
that
that's
tape
where the
material.
double-faced basting tape comes in.
Double-faced basting tape would help there. Although if you've got a walking foot machine and you've done a lot of this, you can often just do it by hand and you don't have to worry about basting tape because it feeds from both the top and the bottom.
Right.
If you're doing it with a sewing machine that has a drop feed where there's a sled on the top side and only a feeding mechanism on the underside of the fabric,
Right.
what happens is that the sled foot has a tendency to push the top layer while the bottom feeding mechanism is pulling the underlayer. And then if you've ever looked at a sail where it looks like the leech tape has a little bit of creasing in it,
Right.
it's because one layer is pushed, one layer is pulled. There, basting tape makes good sense.
Right.
All right. So really, it's a time-consuming job for this particular one, but it's really pretty straightforward. I see that you brought some just scrap Dacron in here. You really wouldn't want to use this for it because slit tape is just so convenient to work with since it's already cut and ready to go.
But this will work for the patch.
This would work. Yeah, this would actually work great for building that
section up.
that filler section for the void.
Down here.
that's-
Yeah.
Correct.
That was whoops. There it is.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. That's good. I thought that would be useful.
Now
that
the-
was a piece from an old sail that we had available.
Right. Now the other thing that is probably worth noting is that on a mainsail like this, the leech edge of the sail is built in straight segments. And so in other words, from the very head of the sail,
Right.
at the back of the headboard,
Right.
that would be essentially a straight line cut from here to the first top batten.
Right.
Then from that batten to the next, it's another straight line segment.
Right.
So that means for when you work on your void, getting this section from here to the next batten flattened out nicely so that you can use a straight edge between here and the next batten.
Right.
That's going to make it a lot easier for you to figure out how to trim that piece that you add on so that you're building the void in properly.
Gotcha.
All right. And so why don't we next go to a machine and let's at least get this batten pocket on for now, and then when you get this laid out later, you can take over from there.
Oh boy.